Okay, let's unpack this. In a world where news cycles spin at, well, warp speed, some regions consistently stand out with a remarkable density of impactful stories. Today, we're zooming in on India, a country buzzing with activity across multiple fronts, to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from today's top headlines.
Yeah, it's quite a snapshot we've got here.
You've given us some truly compelling sources, a curated snapshot of June 28, 2025, that captures India's dynamic interplay with sports, politics, diplomacy, and profound societal shifts.
That's right.
Our mission, as always, is to navigate these sources, extract the core insights, and make sure you walk away truly well-informed, perhaps even with a few aha moments that connect seemingly disparate events.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how these seemingly distinct headlines, a cricket rule change, a constitutional debate, a potential trade deal, a water dispute, defense collaborations, even personal experiences of language in a city,
Right.
they actually connect. They reveal broader underlying trends in international relations, domestic policy, and cultural identity.
Exactly.
We're not just reporting the news, we're looking beyond the surface, questioning assumptions, and providing the crucial context that truly helps us understand, why these developments matter. These sources offer a multifaceted view, allowing us to elaborate on these headlines like seasoned news podcasters, digging deep into the why and what next of each significant event.
Okay, so first up, we're hitting the pitch with a story that combines high-stakes sports with crucial player safety and, well, a dash of controversy.
Yes, the cricket one.
This is where it gets particularly interesting because it shows how, even in the world of competitive sports, rules are constantly evolving under pressure. We're talking about the new, stricter concussion substitute rules in international cricket, and they come directly on the heels of a very specific high-profile incident.
Indeed. This isn't just some theoretical change. It was catalyzed by an incident during India's T20 series win over England in Pune.
Right, that Pune match.
During that pivotal match, India introduced a substitution that immediately raised eyebrows and, frankly, ignited a fiery debate. They replaced batting all-rounder Shivam Dube with fast bowler Harshit Rana, citing a concussion to Dube.
Okay.
Now, on the surface, a concussion substitute is meant to be a like-for-like replacement, right? To ensure player safety without unduly influencing the game's balance.
And that's precisely where England took issue. They lodged a strong objection, arguing that this replacement was fundamentally not like-for-like.
Their point was.
Their contention was that Harshit Rana, while a fast bowler, has, let's say, limited batting capabilities, whereas Shivam Dube is known primarily as a batting all-rounder who, well, very rarely bowls.
So different roles entirely.
Exactly. The spirit of the rule implies a player of similar skill set and contribution to maintain fair play. But here's the twist that really fueled the controversy. Rana, despite England's protests, ended up making a significant impact on the game.
He did, didn't he?
He took 3 crucial wickets, which ultimately helped India secure a 15-run victory and clinch a commanding 3-1 series lead.
And the match referee at the time. Javagal Srinath, I believe.
Yes, Javagal Srinath. He ultimately upheld India's decision at the time, much to England's very public frustration.
Understandable frustration, perhaps.
This incident, among others, became a focal point for the International Cricket Council, the ICC. In response to these specific incidents and broader concerns about the, let's say, strategic misuse of concussion substitutes, the ICC has now revised its protocols.
Okay, so what are the changes?
The core changes are twofold, really designed to prevent any future exploitation and reinforce the integrity of the rule. Firstly, teams must now pre-declare any potential concussion replacements before the toss.
Okay, that's a big shift.
It's a monumental shift.
Yeah.
Previously, the ambiguity surrounding mid-match replacements allowed for a certain flexibility, which teams could interpret to their advantage. A home team might have access to a broader pool of players, potentially bringing in a fresh, impactful player not originally in the match squad.
Right, removing that sort of home team advantage and player access mid-game.
Precisely. This new protocol eliminates that kind of opportunistic play, ensuring transparency and fairness from the outset.
That transparency sounds critical. And the second core change?
The second core change is that any player diagnosed with a concussion will now face a mandatory 7-day rest period.
7 days. Okay.
This isn't just an administrative detail. It's a critical medical and ethical reinforcement. By linking the substitution to a genuine, enforced recovery period, the ICC deters any questionable claims of concussion made purely for tactical advantage.
So it adds a real consequence beyond just the match itself.
Exactly. This balances the competitive integrity of the sport with the evolving understanding of player health and safety, especially concerning head injuries. It aligns cricket with other major sports that have adopted stricter concussion protocols, like rugby and American football, recognizing that player welfare must take precedence over any potential for tactical gain.
Yeah, you see that trend across many sports now, player safety becoming paramount.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this rule amendment is really a microcosm of how rules in any competitive environment, be it sports, business, or governance, need to constantly evolve.
Absolutely.
It's about preventing exploitation, protecting participants, and upholding the integrity and spirit of the game itself. This particular change clearly responds to rising scrutiny around how concussion regulations, initially designed purely for medical protection, were arguably being applied tactically in high-stakes contests.
And England's perspective on this change.
Well, I can certainly imagine England, after their public frustration, is viewing this as a long overdue and necessary correction to ensure fairness on the pitch. It shows that even in the seemingly straightforward world of sports, the dynamic interplay between rules, strategy, and ethics is a continuous negotiation.
Exactly. And the principle applies way beyond sports. Any system, from legal frameworks to international treaties, needs clear, robust guidelines that adapt to new challenges and prevent unintended exploitation. The constant refinement of rules isn't a sign of weakness, but of a system's commitment to fairness and its ability to learn and improve.
Okay, so from the cricket pitch, where rules and integrity are debated, we now pivot to something even more foundational. A deeply significant debate hitting at the very heart of India's national identity.
Ah, the constitutional debate.
We're talking about the terms socialist and secular in its constitution's preamble. So what does this all mean for India's future, and why has this conversation resurfaced with such intensity?
Well, this particular fiery debate was sparked by Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the RSS General Secretary Dattatreya Sabale. He recently suggested that it was time for a national debate on whether these two terms should remain in the preamble of the Indian Constitution.
And the reaction was swift.
Oh, instantly. Sharp and widespread criticism from opposition leaders across the political spectrum. Congress leader and Lok Sabha opposition leader Rahul Gandhi was particularly quick to condemn Hosabal's statement, declaring pointedly that the RSS mask has come off again.
Strong words.
Very. He asserted that the Constitution itself unsettles the RSS because it stands for equality, secularism, and justice, implying that these values are fundamentally at odds with the RSS's ideological leanings.
And it wasn't just Congress.
No, not at all. Other significant opposition parties, including the Communist Party of India, Marxist, or CPIM, and the Rashtriya Janata Dal, RJD, also vehemently denounced Hosabal's remarks, universally interpreting them as a direct ideological challenge to the very foundational principles of the Constitution.
Gandhi's strong response, asserting the Constitution's unsettling effect on the RSS, that reflects a broader political positioning, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The Congress and other secular parties are actively framing themselves as the vigilant defenders of India's constitutional values and its original democratic ethos, directly counteracting what they perceive as the RSS-BJP's ongoing push for majoritarian nationalism.
It really sets the battle lines.
This framing turns the debate into a significant political battleground ahead of upcoming elections.
And this raises an important question: why now, and why these specific terms? What's fascinating here is the crucial historical context.
Right, they weren't always there.
Exactly. The terms socialist and secular were not part of the original Constitution adopted in 1950. They were inserted into the preamble during a highly controversial period known as the Emergency in 1976 through the 42nd Amendment.
The emergency under Indira Gandhi.
Precisely. A 21-month period from 75 to 77 where civil liberties were suspended, government ruled by decree. Critics often view this period as, well, a dark chapter for Indian democracy marked by authoritarian measures. So the very act of inserting these terms during such a controversial time is a central part of the debate itself.
So the timing of their insertion itself is a major point of contention. What are the two main arguments in this long-running historical debate?
Well, there have always been two distinct sides. Critics, often aligning with the right wing and the RSS's ideological stance, argue that these additions were ideologically motivated and were not part of the original foundational vision articulated by the Constituent Assembly.
They see it as an imposition.
Pretty much. They suggest these terms represent a particular political ideology of that time, rather than an organic, widely agreed upon principle of India's founding document. They argue India was inherently secular and pluralistic from its inception, and adding the word secular explicitly was redundant, maybe even limiting.
Okay. And on the other hand, how do the defenders of the amendment view these terms?
Defenders of the 42nd Amendment see the inclusion of socialist and secular as absolutely essential affirmations of India's pluralism, its social justice commitments, and its inclusive democracy.
So making the implicit explicit.
That's the argument. They say these terms simply made explicit what was already implicit in the original document's commitment to equality and justice, particularly crucial in a diverse nation with numerous religions and socioeconomic disparities. For them, secular reinforces the idea of a state that treats all religions equally and has no state religion vital in India's multi-religious society. And socialist underscores the state's commitment to reducing economic inequality and promoting social welfare, a necessary directive, they'd say, for a developing nation.
This controversy has undeniably reignited long-standing tensions over the BJP and RSS's broader ideological goals, particularly their vision for India, perhaps as a primarily Hindu nation, and their relationship with India's foundational constitutional ethos.
It certainly has.
As the 2026 assembly elections draw nearer, you'd expect such ideological clashes to intensify significantly, right?
Absolutely. They will serve as both a battleground for political narratives where each side vies to define the nation's core identity, and frankly, a crucial litmus test for India's democratic framework. It's a profound struggle over what India means to itself and to the world, a debate that penetrates the very fabric of its society.
It really strikes at the core.
And this isn't just about the minutiae of Indian politics or the wording of a document. It's about that universal struggle, isn't it? To define national identity, to balance foundational principles with evolving political currents, and to reconcile historical interpretations with contemporary aspirations. How a nation interprets, defends, or seeks to amend its core values has profound implications for its social cohesion, its governance, and its place on the global stage. It speaks to the enduring power of a constitution as a living document, constantly reinterpreted and debated by its people.
From these really intense domestic constitutional battles that define a nation, let's pivot now to global economics. There's a fascinating announcement from former U.S. President Donald Trump about a potential very big trade agreement with India.
Ah, yes, the very big deal.
This is where rhetoric and reality often dance a complex tango. So what exactly did Trump say, and what are the implications of such a pronouncement?
Well, Trump made this announcement during a wider discussion about a recently secured major trade deal with China. This China deal was specifically focused on rare earth elements, absolutely critical mineral resources.
Crucial for tech, EVs, defense.
Everything high-tech, basically.
Yep.
Essential components for electric vehicles, smartphones, advanced defense systems, renewable energy. The global supply chain for these is currently dominated by China, so securing access is a huge strategic concern for the U.S.
Right, reducing dependency.
Exactly. Fortifying supply chains. It was in this context that Trump then hinted at a forthcoming, very big trade agreement with India, claiming it would further boost U.S. global trade leadership and, again, fortify supply chains.
And that very big part certainly captured attention. What's the immediate reaction from analysts to such a broad, yet, well, undetailed announcement?
What's fascinating here is the immediate and almost universal question analysts raised. Are Trump's remarks substantive? Is there a concrete deal truly on the horizon, or is it merely a pressure tactic?
Aimed at speeding up talks, maybe?
Or aimed at accelerating negotiations, or perhaps even gaining political leverage ahead of the upcoming U.S. elections? It's crucial to note, and this is really important, the Indian side has not officially confirmed any such deal.
That silence speaks volumes.
It does. It suggests that, at the very least, any agreement is not yet finalized, or maybe it's still in very early stages, if it exists beyond just rhetorical flourish. Experts stress that India, a very shrewd negotiator, will undoubtedly demand significant reciprocal benefits in exchange for expanded U.S. market access.
Especially in sensitive areas.
Definitely. Particularly in sensitive sectors like agriculture, where India aims to protect its farmers, pharmaceuticals, where India is a global leader in generics and seeks greater market access, and digital services, an area of increasing importance and sometimes friction for both economies.
And this isn't happening in a vacuum, right? The backdrop to Trump's declaration includes a history of past tensions in bilateral trade. Any new agreement would have to navigate those complexities.
Absolutely. We've seen periods of tariff disputes, remember the steel and aluminum tariffs, or the issues around tariffs on things like Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Right.
There have also been disagreements over digital taxation, where India's move to tax digital services provided by foreign companies drew criticism from the U.S., which viewed it as discriminatory. So, any new agreement needs to address these lingering issues.
So what are people speculating might be in such a deal, if it happens?
Well, the current speculation among trade experts focuses on what specific sectors might be liberalized, whether robust intellectual property provisions will be included, always a key point for the U.S., and crucially, how broader strategic concerns factor in.
Like China.
Exactly. The overarching geopolitical competition with China and China's growing global economic influence, that certainly plays a role. This highlights India's increasingly pivotal role as a key U.S. partner in the Indo-Pacific strategy and as a crucial economic and strategic counterweight to China's dominance.
So while Trump's assertion has certainly energized market watchers and policymakers, the consensus among experts seemed to be caution.
Very much so. Experts largely caution that meaningful progress depends entirely on both sides aligning their expectations and, crucially, overcoming those persistent trade hurdles we just discussed. Until formal, detailed announcements emerge from both capitals, this very big deal remains, in the assessment of many analysts, more rhetorical than real.
It underscores how international trade negotiations are less about quick declarations and more about painstaking, detailed discussions.
It really illustrates that complex dance of international trade negotiations, doesn't it? Where high-level rhetoric often precedes the gritty reality of actual agreement, and where domestic political calendars, especially election cycles in major economies like the U.S., can heavily influence global announcements.
Yeah, it's a useful reminder.
It's a powerful reminder that a public statement, particularly from a political figure, isn't always a firm commitment, but rather a strategic play in a much larger, multifaceted game of diplomacy and economic leverage. Understanding that distinction is key to interpreting these kinds of global headlines.
Okay, next we're diving into the deep, often turbulent waters of international treaties and national security. India has just made a firm, unequivocal rejection concerning the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty.
The IWT, yes, a very sensitive issue.
And it's a significant move with potentially far-reaching implications. This is where international law, national interest, and heightened tensions really collide. What exactly is India's stance, and why is this happening now?
India has firmly rejected a supplemental award issued by what it unequivocally deems an illegal court of arbitration formed under the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty, or IWT.
So they're challenging the court itself.
Fundamentally, India has openly called the panel's constitution a blatant violation of the treaty itself, and as such, declared its rulings to be legally void. This rejection directly relates to Pakistan's long-standing objections concerning India's Kishanganga and Raddle hydroelectric projects,
Both in Jammu and Kashmir.
both located in the crucial region of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan's argument centers on the design and operation of these projects, alleging that they violate the IWT by potentially impeding or altering the flow of waters that Pakistan is entitled to under the treaty. India, for its part, maintains these projects are fully compliant.
And India's dismissal of the court's legitimacy, that's not new, is it?
No, it seems quite consistent. India's Ministry of External Affairs, the MEA, released a comprehensive 5-point statement that clearly dismissed the court's legitimacy, asserting that India has never recognized its jurisdiction or existence since its inception.
Wow, never recognized it at all.
That's their stated position. They've consistently maintained this, reiterating that any proceedings or decisions made by this tribunal are, in India's view, null and void. This steadfast refusal highlights a fundamental disagreement over interpreting and implementing the treaty and the mechanisms for dispute resolution within it.
So this raises an important question. What catalyzed this firm stance right now? Why elevate this long-standing water dispute to such a critical diplomatic flashpoint?
Well, what's particularly striking here is that this rejection follows directly on the heels of escalating tensions after a very recent and devastating terror attack in Pahalgam.
Ah, the Pahalgam attack link.
Exactly. India has now explicitly linked this arbitration issue to broader geopolitical concerns, including the persistent threat of cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan.
And this isn't just rhetoric, is it? There have been actions taken regarding the treaty itself.
That's right, and this is where it truly becomes a major shift in India's diplomatic posture. India has, perhaps most significantly, also suspended portions of the Indus Waters Treaty.
Suspending parts of the treaty, that's huge.
It is. It's not a mere rhetorical rejection. It signals a concrete readiness to reassess long-standing bilateral agreements when national security is perceived to be directly and profoundly at stake. This move is notably among the first direct diplomatic responses to that specific Pahalgam terror incident.
So it clearly links the response to terrorism with broader bilateral issues.
Precisely. While Pakistan continues to allege IWT violations regarding these projects, India firmly insists its projects are treaty compliant and accuses Pakistan of attempting to internationalize what India views as a bilateral technical matter via an illegitimate process, that very arbitration court it rejects.
So this dispute underscores not just a disagreement over water, but a really deep mistrust.
A deepening mistrust, absolutely. And it highlights the increasingly fraught legal and diplomatic pathways between the two countries.
It's not just about who controls the water flow. It's about the erosion of trust, the potential weaponization of legal frameworks for political leverage, and the profound impact of security concerns like terrorism on the stability of long-standing international agreements. It reshapes the entire diplomatic landscape.
It speaks volumes about the delicate balance of power in South Asia and how quickly a technical or legal dispute can become deeply entwined with broader national security narratives. When trust erodes, even the most robust treaties can come under strain, forcing nations to consider their options, even if it means challenging international bodies or reevaluating foundational agreements.
Okay, following closely on the heels of these national security concerns, let's turn to defense strategy, which often goes hand in hand with geopolitical tensions.
Yeah.
India is intensifying its push for expedited defense deliveries and crucial upgrades from Russia.
Right, the Russia defense track.
This move comes in the wake of a significant event known as Operation Sindoor. Let's unpack this critical development and understand its strategic implications. This all unfolded during a high-level bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO summit in Qingdao.
The SCO summit meeting.
Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh met directly with his Russian counterpart, Andrei Belousov, to discuss critical military matters.
And the agenda, what was top of the list?
The main agenda items were quite specific and strategically vital for India. They focused on the swift upgradation of India's Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter fleet, the backbone of the Indian Air Force's combat capabilities, and, crucially, the timely delivery of the remaining 2 regiments of the S-400 air defense systems.
Ah, the S-400s again.
Well,
key piece of kit.
Absolutely. One of the world's most advanced surface-to-air missile systems, offering long-range detection and interception capabilities. Russia, for its part, reaffirmed its earlier commitment during the meeting, assuring India that these pending S-400 units will indeed be delivered by August 2026.
A significant commitment, especially given the current global context surrounding Russia.
Now, to fully grasp the urgency behind these defense discussions, we absolutely need to understand the context of Operation Sindoor.
Right, explain Operation Sindoor.
This significant military operation took place recently, on May 7th. India launched precision strikes on terror hubs located within Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
And the trigger for that.
These strikes were not unprovoked. They were a direct and decisive retaliation for a horrific terror attack that occurred on April 27th in Pahalgam. That attack tragically killed 26 civilians, including a Nepali national. The attack was carried out by the Resistance Front, a known proxy of the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Okay. And Pakistan's response to the strikes.
Following India's strikes, Pakistan responded by targeting both Indian military and civilian sites, further escalating the conflict and highlighting the volatility of the region.
What's fascinating here, then, is the direct and undeniable link between these high-level defense discussions in Qingdao and those very recent escalations.
Exactly.
The S-400 air defense systems, which were high on the agenda for expedited delivery, were actually pivotal during Operation Sindoor itself.
They played a role in the operation.
A critical role. They provided comprehensive air defense cover and situational awareness during the precision strikes, highlighting their immense strategic importance for India's defensive and offensive capabilities in a highly contested airspace. This direct operational experience underscores the urgency for their full complement and the upgrading of existing key assets like the Sukhoi fleet.
So Defense Minister Singh's meeting with Belousov wasn't just about those two specific key items. It clearly covered broader procurement needs and a mutual desire to accelerate the delivery of critical defense hardware.
Yes, it sounds like it was a broad discussion.
This really underlines India's acute urgency to bolster its defensive capabilities amidst rising regional tensions, particularly in the aftermath of Operation Sindoor and Pakistan's retaliatory actions. It signals a shift in India's posture towards rapid modernization and readiness.
These developments signal a definite tightening of India-Russia defense collaboration. It's a partnership shaped not only by decades of long-standing ties, but also by India's evolving security imperatives under increasing geopolitical strain in South Asia.
Even with external pressures on that relationship.
Exactly. This collaboration, even in the face of international scrutiny on Russia, reflects India's commitment to its strategic autonomy and its need for robust defense systems. It reflects a country determined to enhance its military readiness and its ability to respond decisively to cross-border terrorism and heightened hostilities.
It really brings it home.
This isn't just about arms deals or diplomatic meetings. It's about how real-world conflicts and immediate threats directly drive national defense strategies, reshape traditional alliances, and underscore a country's absolute readiness to protect its sovereignty and its citizens.
Okay, now let's take a breath from the high-stakes geopolitical maneuvers and defense strategies and dip into something a little more personal, surprisingly unifying, and deeply human.
A change of pace. Good.
The experiences of a Bengaluru-based entrepreneur that sparked an engaging and heartwarming discussion online. Okay, let's unpack this intriguing story of identity and belonging. Srejan R. Shetty recently posted on X, formerly Twitter, detailing his everyday experiences.
What was his experience?
Often being mistaken for a North Indian, despite being completely fluent in Canada, the local language of Karnataka state, where Bengaluru is located.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Fluent but mistaken.
Yes. He highlighted, with a touch of humor and genuine affection, how locals often react with genuine delight and evident surprise when he speaks Kannada. This reaction is particularly pronounced given his appearance, perhaps, and his Mangalorean accent, which he humbly attributes to imperfect diction.
And how do people react?
He notes that the locals are usually incredibly kind and tactful. Instead of overtly correcting him, they often playfully suggest his roots or ask about his family's background, doing so with a subtle tact designed to avoid any embarrassment.
That's quite nice, actually. A gentle curiosity.
It's a remarkable demonstration of local courtesy in a highly diverse city. What's truly fascinating here, though, is how Shetty's story sheds light on Karnataka's linguistic complexity itself.
Right, Canada isn't monolithic.
Exactly. This raises an important question. What does fluency truly mean in a diverse linguistic landscape like India's, where regional variations are so pronounced? He pointed out that Canada itself varies quite widely across different regions of Karnataka, especially in areas with Konkani influence as a language spoken by a significant population in coastal Karnataka.
So even native speakers might struggle sometimes.
These regional nuances can make even fluent speakers from one part of the state face comprehension challenges when interacting with speakers from another region, highlighting that language is far from a single entity.
Beyond the fascinating nuances of language, Shetty's post really emphasized the remarkably welcoming nature of Bengaluru's people.
Did he touch on the language politics sometimes seen there?
He did. He observed that despite the underlying existence of language politics, which can sometimes flare up, particularly concerning perceptions of uneven development or cultural representation of the local language, actual hostility towards non-Canada speakers, especially those attempting to learn, is quite rare in the city.
So effort is appreciated.
Very much so. Residents typically appreciate genuine efforts to communicate in Canada, even if imperfect, and respond warmly. This fosters a sense of genuine connection and makes the city feel more inclusive.
And he concluded his observations on a pretty humorous and unifying note, didn't he? Something about cricket.
Yes. One that resonates deeply with anyone who spent time in Bengaluru. He stated that perhaps simply supporting the city's often struggling cricket team, the Royal Challengers Bangalore RCB, through their frequently tough seasons, is enough to truly qualify one as a genuine Bangalorean.
Shared sporting pain builds community.
Exactly. A shared experience of sporting disappointment, transcending linguistic or regional differences. His experience resonates deeply in a cosmopolitan city like Bengaluru, where identity and integration often beautifully intersect through language.
It really does.
It powerfully underscores how speaking a regional tongue, however imperfectly or with a discernible accent, can not only bridge cultural divides, but also build unexpected camaraderie and a strong sense of community in an increasingly diverse urban landscape.
It's a great story.
Shetty's story offers a heartfelt glimpse into how shared language, even with its imperfections, can foster genuine connection and belonging in a multicultural setting, proving that effort and intent often matter far more than flawless execution when it comes to human connection. It's a universal story, really.
Absolutely. How simple acts of cultural engagement can transcend perceived differences and build community, even in the most diverse cities on Earth. Okay, finally, for our last deep dive today, we tackle a story that impacts thousands of young lives and entire national futures.
The student issue, yes, very important.
The growing uncertainty faced by Indian students, traditionally drawn to the US and UK for higher education. This isn't just about visa rules. It's about human aspirations, global talent flow, and national strategies. So what does this all mean for them, and what are the forces at play here?
Well, both the UK and the US have recently implemented significant and impactful changes to their immigration policies, directly affecting this critical student demographic.
Let's start with the UK. What are the changes there?
The changes from the UK are particularly comprehensive, outlined in a new white paper proposing stricter immigration controls aimed at reducing overall net migration. These include several measures that directly impact international students, especially from India.
Such as?
For instance, the white paper proposes doubling the settlement period required for international graduates, meaning it would take them longer to qualify for permanent residency. There are also new, tougher English language requirements for dependents of international students, which can significantly affect those wanting to bring their families.
And the post-study work visa. That's a big one.
Crucially, yes. The post-study work visa, which currently allows graduates to work for 2 years after completing their degree, is being reduced to just 18 months.
That really changes the calculation for students.
It does. These changes, quite directly, undermine Indian students' ability to secure stable employment after graduation and fundamentally recalibrate the expected return on investment they would anticipate from pursuing British degrees.
Okay, and across the Atlantic, the U.S. measure sounds even more abrupt.
Yes, much more sudden. They've announced a halting of new student visa interviews globally.
Globally? Wow. What's the reason given?
Their stated reason for this drastic step cites national security concerns, particularly those involving elite universities. This is a huge deal, especially given the recent demographic shift. India recently surpassed China as the top source of international students in the U.S.
So this hits Indian applicants particularly hard.
Disproportionately impacts them, yes, leaving many thousands uncertain about their ability to join U.S. institutions in late 2025. It disrupts their entire educational and career trajectory.
What's truly fascinating and, frankly, deeply concerning here is how these developments highlight a persistent reality. Indian students often become unintended collateral in the domestic political debates of their host countries.
That's a really good point. Caught in the middle.
Despite their significant economic and academic contributions to these host countries, filling critical skill gaps, boosting local economies, and enriching campuses, they remain remarkably vulnerable to sudden foreign policy shifts and internal political dynamics, especially around immigration. This raises an important question for India. Is its current diplomatic approach sufficient in proactively protecting its students' interests in such a volatile global environment?
And what does the source material suggest on that?
The source material we have suggests that India's current diplomatic strategy is largely reactive, and as a result, deemed insufficient by many observers, meaning it often responds to crises rather than anticipating and mitigating them.
So if the current approach is seen as insufficient, what are the proposed solutions, both externally and internally for India?
Well, the article argues strongly for structural protections, advocating for integrating student mobility clauses directly into bilateral trade deals with countries like the US and UK.
Embedding it in trade deals. Interesting idea.
The idea is to make student visas and post-study opportunities a component of broader economic agreements, giving them more weight and stability. It also calls for securing concrete guarantees for students who are already enrolled abroad, protecting them from retrospective policy changes.
Protecting those already in the system. Makes sense.
Furthermore, there's a strong emphasis on enhancing pre-departure support, providing comprehensive information and guidance to prevent fraud and misuse of visa processes, which unfortunately can be a significant issue.
And what about solutions within India?
Beyond external diplomatic and trade measures, the article also urges India to invest much more significantly in its domestic higher education infrastructure. The idea here is to reduce the country's current reliance on foreign institutions as the primary pathway for quality education and advanced research.
Build up domestic capacity.
Exactly. Currently, many Indian students look abroad due to perceived gaps in quality, infrastructure, or specific program availability domestically. The conclusion is stark. Unless these structural reforms, both external protections and internal investments are made, Indian students will continue to face disruptions and uncertainties from the West's tightening immigration policies.
It calls for a real shift in perspective, then.
Yes. The article advocates for treating these young, talented individuals as strategic citizens rather than merely export goods. This shift in perspective is absolutely essential for shaping more equitable, resilient, and truly international partnerships rooted in shared educational progress and mutual benefit, not just short-term economic gain.
It's a powerful argument, treating students as assets, not just numbers.
This isn't just about bureaucratic visa rules. It's about how broad global political shifts directly affect the individual aspirations of thousands of young people. It's about how nations must strategically adapt their approaches to protect their most valuable resource, their youth and talent, which are crucial for future economic growth and innovation. It's a profound reminder of the very real human cost when sweeping policy changes ripple across international borders.
Absolutely. A critical issue with deep implications.
As you can see, today's deep dive has spanned a remarkable spectrum, from the tactical nuances of a cricket match and the integrity of its rules, to the foundational debates within a nation's constitution and the very meaning of its identity.
Quite a range.
We've explored the intricate dance of global trade and diplomacy, the critical tensions of water disputes and national security, and finally, the deeply personal and societal impacts of linguistic identity and educational aspirations.
It truly shows just how interconnected these seemingly disparate issues are, weaving together a rich and dynamic tapestry of India's evolving daily pulse and its complex, vital place in the world.
Yeah, you really see the threads connecting everything.
This journey through India's daily pulse raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. In a world where international relations are increasingly shaped by domestic priorities and where global events have such immediate personal impacts, how can nations like India navigate these complexities to robustly protect their diverse interests?
Everything from sports integrity.
Right, from ensuring fairness in international sports to safeguarding the fundamental aspirations of their brightest young minds seeking education and opportunity abroad. It's a question of balance, strategy, and foresight in an ever-shifting global landscape.
A lot to think about there. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel a little more well-informed and perhaps a little more curious about the fascinating pulse of India today.